Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Today is Friday, March 24, 2023, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Start Network here in Chicago. We're at Chemistry Chicago, where I'll be having a book signing in a little bit with the folks with the WVON radio. Looking forward to it. Also, while we're here, we'll be chatting with the brother who wants to become the third African-American ever elected mayor in Chicago. Look forward to that conversation. We're not far away from the runoff, and so we'll hear what he has to say about, again, trying to become the next mayor of Chicago. And so you don't want to miss that conversation. We'll also hear from Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett. Yo, she's been getting into it with that fool, Jim Jordan, out of Ohio. Wait till we hear what she has to say as well. Plus, we'll talk about white fear, how the browning of America is making white folks lose their minds with WVON. So looking for a fantastic day, folks. Sold out place here at Chemistry Chicago. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin.
Excuse me, we're walking right in front of the camera. Folks, we're live here at Chemistry Chicago in Chi-Town. Of course, we have our book signing with WVON Radio, and so looking forward to that. Folks are filing in as we speak. I mean, it's sold-out, packed place. They've been calling since yesterday. So many people trying to get in, but guess what? That means we got to come back, have a second book signing, so looking forward to that. But let's kick this thing off talking about politics. Of course, the runoff is coming up very soon for the mayor of Chicago. It is Brandon Johnson versus Paul Vallas to become the next mayor of Chicago. Lori Lightfoot, of course, did not make the runoff. She's the incumbent mayor in this city. Brandon Johnson looks to become the third African-American ever elected mayor in Chicago. Of course, Harold Washington was first, Lori Lightfoot, and he joins us right now. How you doing, man?
Back to your neighborhood.
I spent 6 years in Chicago. Of course, ran the Chicago Defender, was on WVON radio, so glad to be back. You've been going a day and night. Saw you last night. Had some fun, at least a little respite. You were still campaigning, but got a chance to holler at New Edition, Tank, and all those guys.
That was an exciting night. You know, of course, I had to bring the news home to my wife. So that didn't go very well, but now I have that much more incentive to win. I'm going to make it up to her.
There you go. There you go. See, cause if she were there, I would have hooked up as well. So I'm like, come on, let's go meet them. But certainly glad to see you last night. Let's talk about this campaign. You've got endorsements going back and forth. You've got folks who are weighing in. And just, in these final days, what is the closing argument that you are making to voters to turn out and support you for mayor?
Well, first of all, I'm deeply humbled and excited to be in this moment. You know, when I announced back in October, Roland, I believe I was polling at 2.8%. No one gave me an opportunity or even a chance to get to this point. So our campaign has obviously caught fire. It's a multicultural, multi-generational movement. Tremendous excitement around the city, around building a better, stronger, safer Chicago. And in these closing moments, I mean, we have a very clear choice to make here. You know, the politics of old that have left families behind, the type of economic despair that we are experiencing right now. My opponent started that process back in the 90s. He took that care around the country, New Orleans. He took it to Philadelphia, Bridgeport, came back to Chicago State. He was fired there, right? And so now you have that infrastructure that is trying to rear its ugly head and take us backwards. And so we have built our candidacy around hope, turning those hopes into votes, of course. But we've really built it around a substantive message around good schools, reliable transportation, good paying jobs, affordability, a safe community. And so if we want a better, stronger, safer Chicago, we have to do what safe American cities do, which is invest in people. And that's what this moment is about. And that's what I'm committed to doing as the next mayor of the city of Chicago.
Okay. All right. So we're having some sound issues. And so, guys, let me know what's going on with that. And so to the control room back there, are you properly hearing the mayor? Okay, all right. So let's do. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this here. First of all, are you guys properly hearing me? Okay, all right. So let's just do this here. Okay, not a problem. So I'll just simply. So we'll just hit the microphone down. I hold the microphone right here. Mayor, you talked about a multiracial, multicultural coalition. What are you saying to young voters? Because they were critical in 2022 with the turnout, but also what I often hear from folks is that what I always say, though, to millennials and Gen Z, you have numbers, but you're not actually voting your numbers. If you vote your numbers, you can decide who future leadership is going to be.
No, that's absolutely right. Look, I've served as a public school teacher here in Chicago, teaching middle school and high school. So many of my former students are now of voting age. In fact, some of them are in their mid to late 20s and even their early 30s. And so I made a commitment that there's data that proves that if we want to reduce violence in the city of Chicago, the way we do that is by youth employment. And so I've put forth a plan where we double the amount of young people that we hire from 14 to 24 years old. And so we do that by making sure that all of our sister agencies that I have jurisdiction over as the mayor of the city of Chicago, that we hire in those operations. But we also bring in our corporations to make sure that they're also committed to youth employment. And here's the other dynamic that's important. Right now we have about 55,000 vacancies within manufacturing positions. This is also digital manufacturing. This is the cutting edge of technology, right? And so these positions are available now. And so the type of economic despair that has been pervasive throughout the city of Chicago, you're going to have a mayor in me that recognizes the value of young people, 2, creating opportunities for young people to actually engage, and 3, giving real opportunity for young people to actually experience the type of economic growth that's happening around the country. Look, this is one of the largest economies in the world, right? And so why not participate in what is already available? Now, I'm going to bring those services right to the front door of the people of Chicago. And so I'm very much excited about what this moment means. But, of course, we're going to need young people to recognize that when you vote on April 4th, you're voting for economic opportunities. You're voting for affordability in the city of Chicago. You're voting for, like, your voice to actually matter in this, not just election cycle, but how we do politics moving forward. And this is an incredible opportunity to do just that.
Your critics and others, they say, oh, he wants to defund the police. I have dealt with this issue the last several years all across the country. And what people, for some reason, don't begin to understand is that if you have a conversation about crime, then you've got to have a conversation about economics. You've got to have a conversation about education. You've got to have a conversation, because the reality is, in the areas where you, as John Hope Brown always says, you've never seen a riot in a neighborhood with a credit score of 700 or higher. And so the reality is, crime is tied to economics. It's tied to education. And this notion that somehow you could just keep spending millions and billions on cops doesn't solve the problem if you don't address the root cause of crime in any city across the country.
That's exactly right. And that's exactly what I'm doing as a Cook County Commissioner. We've invested millions of dollars into violence prevention, of which those dollars went towards housing, Those dollars went towards workforce development. Those dollars went towards our universal basic guaranteed income, of which 70%, 71% are women. The average age of those recipients are 40 years old, right? It's about creating a pathway to home ownership. In the city of Chicago, 35% of Northsiders make $100,000 a year or more. On the west and south sides of the city of Chicago, over half of our community makes less than $25,000 a year, right? This actually a study that came out right after President Obama's time as President of the United States. And they show that black families who do make $100,000 a year or more, they live in less safe communities than white families that make less than $30,000 a year or more. So you're absolutely right. Whenever you talk about economic development, whenever you talk to families about what they want the neighborhood to look like, they never start the conversation off, here's where we're going to build our jail. No one starts with that. They talk about transportation, housing, jobs, healthcare, access to mental health. So there's no secret here. We know what the people of the city of Chicago want. We know what people want across the country. They want real investment, and that's what I'm committed to doing as the next mayor of the city of Chicago, investing in people.
Commissioner, hold tight 1 second. I got to go to a break, pay a couple of more bills. We'll also solve the audio issues. Folks, we're here at Chemistry Chicago, here in Hyde Park on the south side of Chicago. We come back, we'll talk with, again, a little bit more with Brandon Johnson, who wants to become the next mayor of Chicago. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. Checks and money order go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Don't forget, we're now our 24-hour streaming channels on Amazon News. If you go to Amazon Fire, then, of course, you can check it out. Also on Amazon News, or you can tell Alexa, play Black Star Network. You hear the audio for the program as well. And don't forget to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Bookstores all across the country, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, Books A Million. Also, download your copy on Audible. We'll be right back. Chemistry Chicago, right here with WVON. Back in a moment.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shootings.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance.
We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat at the Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm BB Winans.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Welcome back to Chemistry Chicago, folks. We are here in the Hyde Park area. How y'all doing? Y'all good? Y'all good? All right. They ain't having any liquor yet, y'all. So, just joking. So, we're here. Of course, I have a book signing here with WVON Radio, where I used to have a talk show midday first, then, of course, a morning drive. And so I hit up Melody Span Cooper, the owner. She said, let's do this. And so we put it together rather quickly. So we want to thank them and also thank the folks with Chemistry Chicago. We're talking with Commissioner Brandon Johnson, who's in the runoff, of course, to become the next mayor of Chicago. And so we talked about economics. We talked about crime. One of the things that still jumps out for me is economic advancement. Chicago just lost one of its greatest citizens, Ed Gardner, 98 years old, who passed away. And you've always had in the 70s, 80s, robust black-owned businesses. But when we think about now, though, in terms of Atlanta as the black Mecca, it's interesting that where Chicago sits. And so what about that in terms of providing economic opportunities for black-owned business owners to build and grow and create scale?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, this is the city of Chicago, one of the largest economies in the world. And so we have to make sure that our people are participating in that economy. And so, unfortunately, what has happened over the course of generations now, where black business owners have to prove their worth 50% of the time, versus spending 100% of the time doing the work. And so one of the first things I'm going to do is make sure that we cut the red tape, make it easier for our people to participate. The second thing that we have to do is make sure that we have a real commitment to 50% of goods and services and contracts go to minority-owned and women-owned businesses, and to make sure that 30% specifically target black-owned businesses. And part of what we have to do is to make sure that not only cutting out the red tape, making sure that we are making it more an intentional target towards black-owned businesses and developers. The challenge with many small businesses, they don't have the money on the front end to hold down the business until a reimbursement kicks in.
Which is typically 90 to 180 days, 3 to 6 months.
Exactly. And so what I'm going to do is move away from this reimbursement and move towards micro grants. And that's important, grants that they don't have to repay. Because whether you are a small business owner or someone who is looking to create generational wealth through home ownership, when my wife and I purchased our first home, Roland, we needed 2 government programs to help us with down payment assistance. Without that down payment assistance, we would have continued to struggle to come up with a down payment in order to purchase the home.
Which, by the way, first of all, is historical, because many of those white soldiers coming out of the World War II had the GI Bill, government program. When you think about the Homestead Act, where land was given away to whites, government program. So this idea that you've never had government involvement in home ownership is an absolute lie, and it was actually government programs that actually kept black people from able to get homes and get loans.
I'm glad you highlighted that. As a social studies teacher, every time we spoke of the Great Depression, 30% unemployment for white men, our country called it a national crisis. In fact, they said it was dangerous to have that many white men unemployed. And so they literally began to give white men shovels before there were things to dig. No one talked about boots, bootstraps, safety net, entitlement. No one brought, that to the forefront. And so clearly in the city of Chicago, we have stuff to dig, things to build, and lives to change. And small businesses, and particularly black-owned businesses, will have a friend and a partner on the 5th floor when the city of Chicago elects me as the next mayor of the city of Chicago.
That was something Maynard Jackson did that I thought was so important. When he challenged the banks to have some black board members, he called them in and he said, hey, you need to ask the black board members, and they said no. So he told the city treasurer, fine, pull out money out of their banks. But he also said the exact same thing when it came to providing lines of credit to those businesses. He said, look, these people are getting city contracts, so we're going to be paying them. You should be providing lines of credit. And first of all, that's also race neutral. If there are banks in the city of Chicago where the city is putting its money in, those banks should be providing lines of credit, if those who need it, to businesses that are getting city contracts. And to me, if those banks balk, the city should take their money out of those banks.
Absolutely. In all of our investment firms, the amount of money that people make on retirement, security, and pensions, right? where we know overwhelmingly are people who have been able to make it to the middle class.
And that's the fund money that drives Wall Street.
There you go.
The pension funds.
It sounds like you're coming back to Chicago to be my senior advisor.
Oh, no. I mean, I've been hitting this thing for a long time because the people don't understand. And I tell our artists this is the underpinning of our economy. You got black firefighters, police officers, teachers, public servants. That's who Wall Street's investing their money, these pension funds.
And I'm glad you highlighted that because that's the difference between me and my opponent. Back in the 90s, he worked with the Republican legislature to literally take dollars in the general revenue stream that was designed to secure retirement for our seniors, took the dedicated revenue stream from retirement and put it into the general fund, where elected officials, mayors for the last 30 plus years have been able to use those dollars as they please. And as a result of that, now the people of Chicago are stuck with a $2.5 billion property tax bill. And that's why when we talk about economic development, I'm the only person running for mayor who put forth a budget plan to eliminate the structural deficit, make up to $1 billion of new investments so that our small businesses can actually thrive and grow. And I'm doing that all without raising property taxes. Because it's one thing to finally get economic development and security and good paying jobs, and then for the government to turn right back around and say, give that back to me, right? And so if we're going to have long-term sustainability economically within our communities, economic corridors, whether it's, Cottage Grove or Madison and Pulaski, we have to be intentional about those investments, but we also have to make sure that we're clear about what's at stake, how we got in this mess in the first place, where our pensions have been raided, and then Wall Street, which there's a report that just came out today that my opponent took $1.5 billion from Chicago Public Schools and gave it to Wall Street, right? So these tricks and these schemes have been around for some time, and now we're in an economic crisis, but now we're also in a position where we can actually shift the dynamic in a very dramatic way by, of course, electing me on April 4th.
Let's talk education. And that is a huge piece. You mentioned being a social studies teacher, working with Chicago Teachers Union. I have been perfectly clear to folks my support for school choice, but this is what I've also said to people. I believe that if there is a school that is working, then we support it, replicate it, and continue to build on it. I said if there are traditional schools not doing the job, I said they got to go. If there are charter schools not doing the job, they got to go. Magnet schools, we go down the line. I believe in what is successful, what works. Are our kids being educated? So when we talk about education, how do you see the future of education in the city? Because I believe one of the biggest mistakes that has happened here, what I mean in this city, is that people spent a lot of time focused on the building as opposed to the folks inside the building. When the Chicago Defender, perfect example, when we were in the building, I moved us out of that building. And folks were like, man, what are you doing? I said, y'all got to make a decision. Do you want the paper or the building? Because to refurbish the building cost more than the whole company was worth. And they were so focused on the building. And I think a lot of folks for schools, they focus on the building, but you got a lot of buildings that, frankly, you don't have the students who are still there. They were built for 800, 1,000, 2,000 kids, and the numbers have changed. So when it comes to this future, how do you redefine the future of education in Chicago? Because education in Chicago in 2023 is different than it was in 2003 and 1983 and 1973.
Yeah, look, first of all, you have to have someone who actually believes in public education, and I do. As a product of public education, my children all attend the Chicago Public Schools. Behind us is Kenwood Academy. I know there's a Bronco in the building. There's always a Kenwood Bronco, no matter where you go in Chicago. And one of the reasons why my son attends Kenwood Academy is because he plays the violin. They offer a full orchestra. Here's my vision for public education and education in general. We have to make sure that we have a well-rounded curriculum, right, where there's art, music, digital technology, the trades, right? We have to ultimately close the gap between graduation and economic opportunity. The one thing that's constant, to your point, that the education system in and of itself has to meet the demands of the economy. And so right now, education is not doing that. I mentioned manufacturing positions, the fact that we have green technology, the life sciences, that are available to us. And we cannot lose sight of the arts, right? I mean, when we talk about culture, when we talk about how do we make sure that we protect the interest of people, we have to make sure that we're encouraging young people to participate in the very things that give them purpose. It's why in my public education plan, I call for child care for all, as well as community colleges being free for Chicago public school students. You know, back in the day, to your point, Roland, a high school diploma got you a little bit more 30, 40 years ago. Now, it doesn't go as far. It doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities, and this is why we have to make sure that we are implementing and instituting the trades into our school curriculum, but we also have to make sure that we are extending those opportunities all the way through community college.
See, I'm glad you mentioned the trades. I literally was talking to Chris Gardner earlier. We were talking about that because, look, the reality is not everybody's going to go to a four-year school. And I think the mistake that we've made is the pendulum has swung. In the 70s and 80s, they were pushing black and brown kids into trades and not four-year institutions, just like they were trying to push us into agriculture after slavery. And black folks were saying, wait a minute, we don't want our kids just farming. We want them to be doctors and lawyers. Part of the thing now is that the reason you need the trades, if your air conditioner goes out, you ain't calling a lawyer. You need somebody who's trained to fix the air conditioner. If something's wrong with your plumbing, you need that. And the thing is, those jobs can't be exported to China. And so what Chris Gardner was saying is he said, look, you've got jobs that are $80,000 to $100,000 that are trades jobs that we can't act like are not important. And so there has to be, to me, an education balance there when it comes to trying to tell everybody go to four-year schools. And again, we need folks who want to do that. But there are just some folk who are not interested in that.
Look, I have brothers who took advantage of the trades. My father was not just a public employee and a pastor. He was also a carpenter, a general contractor. Look, those were skills that did not quite translate for me. Now, I could go into
I'm with you on that one.
You know what I'm saying?
I ain't building a damn thing. I ain't fixing. I'm going to call somebody.
Now, I can't help with the demolition, though. I can do that. I can knock stuff down and clean it up.
I ain't even trying to do that.
But when my wife and I purchased our first home, we had a combined income of $80,000 and 6 degrees, Roland. 6 degrees versus my brothers who have no student debt and are making more money than my wife and I combined, right? And so that tells you who made the right decision. But to your point, we have to create economic opportunities, and our education system has to be a conduit to that. And that's my vision for public education in the city of Chicago. But we cannot miss out on the fact that not only do we have to have arts and sports and recreation, we also have to make sure that we are providing mental health services as well, because our young people are experiencing a great deal of trauma. Not that it did not exist when we were growing up, but we were told to suck it up. Ain't no wrong with you. It ain't that serious. Like, some of the worst things we ever heard came from our grandparents, and they loved us, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But now, you know, I have my daughter, she's 8, and we have a back and forth, and she look at me and say, Dad, you're triggering me. Exactly. That's the look I give her.
Hey, listen, look, my wife and I raised my 6 nieces, and they said the same thing. And I'm like, oh, I got a trigger for you. I literally told my twin nieces, y'all could not have survived in the house with my daddy. I said, y'all think I'm tough. Y'all could not have survived growing up.
You know, but the unique thing about that, though, you know, I had an older brother who had untreated trauma. And unfortunately, because the trauma was not treated, he did die. He left here addicted and unhoused. And so I often think that if my brother would have had the language of his niece that he never met, would his life have been different? And so it's creating economic opportunities and a pathway to economic opportunities by also making sure that we're providing the systems of care for our students and our families and the overall school communities. That's my vision for education.
The last question, I was driving down the street and a sister was an educator was telling me about these pods for the homeless. That's an issue that Karen Bass is dealing with in Los Angeles. Mayors are dealing with all over. And so what is your plan to deal with the issue of the homelessness here in Chicago?
Yeah, 65,000 plus families that are unhoused in the city of Chicago. It's unconscionable, 20,000 of whom are students. And so there's a powerful ordinance in the city of Chicago that I'm going to work to pass my first 100 days. It's called Bring Chicago Home. And it's going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of my first term to build affordable housing, public housing, and again, to create a pathway to home ownership. This is something that is within the top this is the top priority, or one of the top priorities for my administration. As a Cook County Commissioner, I passed an ordinance called the Just Housing Ordinance, where it eliminated housing discrimination against those who were formerly incarcerated, who were seeking housing. And for many of our family members without stable housing, how do you create stable economic environments if you don't have anywhere to lay your head? And so that is top of mind in the city of Chicago, and I'm looking forward to working with Mayor Bass.
All right, April 4th is the date. We're going to do this here. Look into that camera right there. There's somebody who's in Chicago, and they're saying all that stuff sound great, sound wonderful. I don't believe it'll happen or whatever, and so they just don't believe in it. 30 seconds. Tell them why their vote absolutely matters.
Look, we're building a better, stronger, safer Chicago, and we're doing it together. This candidacy has captured the imagination of people, not just all over the city of Chicago, but from around the country. April 4th is a significant day because we recognize the life and legacy of one of the greatest humanitarians ever to walk the earth. And when he came to the city of Chicago, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., with Reverend Jackson, he understood that if we can figure it out in the city of Chicago, we can do it anywhere in the world. On April 4th, you're voting for affordable housing, good jobs. You're voting for health care. You're voting for a safe community, and I'm the only person in this race that has put forth a plan to actually do just that. So I'm counting on you, Chicago, to make sure that the better, stronger, safer city that we want, that we can build that together. And so this is not just about the assassination of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. This is about the resurrection of the city of Chicago. So I'm counting on you to punch 5, and you know it, Brandon is better. Y'all know it.
All right, Commissioner, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Good luck.
Thank you, Roland.
All right, and all those who are watching, yes, we did reach out to Paul Vallas. They told me he was busy today. We've sent multiple emails saying, okay, pick a day next week. We have not heard back, so we offer the opportunity. And remember, y'all know how I feel about black-owned media. You can't say you care about black people if you will not come talk to black-owned media. So to the Vallas campaign, y'all on the clock. All right, got to go to the break. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
A lot of these corporations or people that are running stuff push black people if they're doing a certain thing. What that does is it creates a butterfly effect of any young kid who, you know, wants to leave any situation they're in, and the only people they see are people that are doing this. So I gotta be a gangster, I gotta shoot, I gotta sell, I gotta do this in order to do it. And it just becomes a cycle. But when someone comes around and is making we don't, you know, they don't want to push it or put money into it. So that's definitely something I'm trying to fix too, is just show there's other avenues. You don't got to be a rapper, you don't got to be a ball player. You can be a country singer, you can be an opera singer, you can be a damn whatever, you know? Showing the different avenues, and that is possible, and it's hard for people to realize it's possible until someone does it.
On the next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, Re-Entry Anxiety. A lot of us are having trouble transitioning in this post-pandemic society and don't even realize it. We are literally stuck between two worlds, in purgatory. How to get out of purgatory and regain your footing and balance.
What emotions they're feeling and being able to label them, because as soon as you label an emotion, it's easier to self-regulate. It's easier to manage that emotion.
On the next, A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, everyone. I'm Godfrey, and you're watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered, and while he's doing Unfiltered, I'm practicing the wobble.
folks, welcome back. We're at Commissioner Chicago and just finished talking with Commissioner Brandon Johnson. But I want to do this here. You heard him allude to Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. He is here in the building. And I say this all the time, and I believe this. I believe it's for African Americans, especially, I would say this, especially in Chicago. Far too many of us take for granted whenever, do me a favor, let all the folks at the bar, I need y'all to bring it down some. All the folks at the bar, bring it down some. Tell the folks at the bar, I need y'all to bring it down some. Now I want you to listen to what I'm about to say. We make a huge mistake as African Americans when we are in the presence of people who made it possible for us to do what we do today. When I'm in Atlanta, whether I see Andrew Young, when Reverend C.T. Vivian was here, or when Reverend Joseph Lowry, I always made a point to always go up to them, to give them our respect, to give them our acknowledgement because of what they did. And so I want everybody in here to give a round of applause because Reverend Jesse Jackson is still with us. He is still on the front lines. He is still fighting. He's still doing that. And so I'm going to do this here because I know I was sitting here. Reverend was trying to call me to come over there, so I know he got something to say. So, you know, he's always trying to now, again, y'all know I don't like to let Omegas do any talking on my show. But I'm gonna go ahead and walk over here. I'm gonna go ahead and walk over here and chat with him. I know y'all got that. All right, put that light on. I heard you call me. I know you wanted to say something. Go right ahead.
50 students. On the west side, Mandy High has 16 students. The school built 1,500.
Hold on 1 second. Did I get my audio? They are? Go ahead.
Chicago has 40 schools, 250 high school students. Manor on the west side has 16 students, 16, no band, no choir, no recreation, no nothing. Brother can tackle that. Paul has made a living running around, probably he wouldn't live. There's no public schools left in New Orleans, all charter now. Same was happening in Philadelphia, ran around Philadelphia, Bridgeport, back here trying to be mayor. There are too many blacks that seem to be, visible reason to go off of Vallas. They're looking for a job or something. So I want to thank you for the brother. So Dr. King, April 4th, said he laughed and said he cried. Given price, he paid the fair housing. It's all Dr. King. We're on 88th Street today. That's going to live west of Halsted through March. So we talk about King 64, 65, Chicago 66, 68. So we have a moral obligation to Dr. King really to make him laugh through the night when we turn out and vote. In Chicago now, unlike in other city, you can sit down and register here and vote here. There's no closeout date on voter registration. The busload of people stood down the other day, they registered and voted at the same time.
All right, Doc. I appreciate it. Always good to see you. Now, look, don't be doing that Omega stuff. Now, you know Alpha's rule. Don't be doing that. See, there you go. And you go with that stuff. You already know Alpha's your daddy. You know that.
No comment.
Another round of applause, y'all, for Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. All right, here. I think y'all should be hearing me now. I want to bring in my panel right now. Let me bring them in. Michael Imhotep, host, African History Network show. Matt Manning, civil rights attorney. Dr. Avis Jones, the Weaver political analyst. Glad to have all three of y'all here. Avis, I want to start with you. Again, I keep making this point all the time. Too many African Americans, we're not voting our numbers. I deal with these crazy folk out here who keep saying, oh, you've been the Democratic shield. Here's the reality. If you don't vote your numbers, shut the hell up. Then you can't get anything if you don't vote. This is not that hard.
Absolutely. It's not hard at all. It's basic math. Here's the problem. If you're not voting your numbers, you're leaving your power on the table. What good is it to have power that you choose not to flex? I would just kind of ask that question. That's why it's so important to maximize our voting power. And the reality is that we are situated strategically in states that are critical, especially for federal elections, but at every election, your local election, it all matters. Honestly, I would argue that your local elections impact your life more on a day-to-day basis, oftentimes, than even the federal elections that oftentimes gets all the attention. So the degree to which you have power and you choose not to use it shows how, under focused we are on really being able to make the change that we are capable of making. Sometimes it's not just about hoping, wanting, wishing something will happen. It's about really going out there and doing everything that is literally within your power to do in order to make it happen.
Now, to the folks in the room, you can't hear our panel talking, so if y'all pull up our Black Start Network app or you pull up our YouTube channel, you actually will hear the program, and so just want to let y'all know that. Michael, to that point, you cannot talk about advancing economically if you are not in the process. Well, if you have somebody who wants to change the process economically, then you have to be able to then vote.
Absolutely. You have to be able to vote, Roland, and you have to understand the action that has to take place after the election is over with. You have to understand the policies. You have to not only understand the policies, but understand how to see your agenda through fruition, how to get the policies put in place. And then one of the most critical things that we miss is understanding how to protect gains that have been made. You have to assess it between election to election. You have to assess the gains that were made and understand who needs to be kept in office to protect gains that were made and who needs to be voted in office to protect gains that were made. But most importantly, you have to identify those who are against your agenda and make sure that they do not get in office. So it's a continuous process. Unfortunately, many of our people will focus on just marching and not understanding that marching is a tactic that's part of a larger plan. So we'll focus on, one of the things that Dr. King taught us is that you have to always anchor your external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal, meaning that when you have mass protests, you also have to have targeted, sustained economic withdrawal strategies to target your opponent to weaken them so that you can push your agenda and get something accomplished. So we have to understand, politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, the adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. So it's an entire process that we have to understand.
Matt, I'll ask you this here. When we talk about, again, how to exercise power, you think about Atlanta. Why is Atlanta considered the Black Mecca? Easy. Maynard Jackson, Andrew Young, Maynard Jackson, Bill Campbell, Shirley Franklin, Kasim Reed, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and now you have, as they say in Atlanta, got Mayor Dre, who's there. You've had consistent black mayors. You had Harold Washington elected in '83. Then you go all the way until 2019 and Lori Lightfoot, and then now you have an opportunity with Brandon Johnson. I don't understand, if you're black in Chicago, how you don't understand having an African-American mayor plays a role in how things come to African Americans. Atlanta has figured it out. With all of the black folks in Chicago, if you look at the dominant wards in Chicago, at the top, the dominant wards voting are African American wards. If black folks don't vote in their interest, in their numbers, then you're not going to have somebody black sitting in the mayor's office.
Precisely, and that's precisely why you have people decades later who still will talk about the impact of Mayor Washington as though he's still occupying that office. So it's not only important to make sure that we vote our numbers and that we exercise the power in terms of distribution of resources such that people are satisfied with their government, but also understanding how important it is to keep a face that looks like you, because there's a direct correlation between that and the quality of your life. So, kind of to the point that Michael made, it's not only about exercising our power, but it's about being nuanced, about recognizing what we have to do to keep that continuity in office of people who look like us, particularly if we're voting in high proportions, right, relative to the wards of the city. If people are voting in very high numbers, then it stands to reason there should be a greater chance in every subsequent election to keep a mayor who looks like you in office, which has a direct correlation to your quality of life and the quality of your education and the quality of your public safety, so on and so forth. So I would echo the other two panelists' sentiments before mine.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We got to go to break. We come back. More on today's show. We'll hear from Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett. She's in a constant battle with the crazy Republicans in the House. This sister's holding it down on that so-called House Oversight Committee. We'll show you our interview with her when we come back right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Chemistry, Chicago, here in Hyde Park on the south side of Chicago. Glad to see folks here. I see a Kappa sitting over here. You didn't think? Rufus, you didn't think I didn't see you? Oh yeah. Yeah, but you dress like an elf and all that black. See, look at, that's blue. What's blue? You crazy as hell. That's black. Yo, let me see. Hold up. Your sweater blue. This is black. Y'all Kappas can't even see. Go on, see.
Please forgive my friend Roland Martin. Please forgive him.
Oh, you can't forgive me? Don't let me lay hands on you. That's black, Rufus. Rufus, you can't see Rufus. Y'all, this blue or black? Black. Rufus, gonna sit down. The whole room know I ain't lying.
They treating you nice because you...
No, they know I ain't lying. All right, y'all, we'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is RolandS.Martin.com.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Yo, it's your man Dion Cole from Blackish, and you're watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Stay woke.
You know, all right, you know it's a bunch of crazy folks who now control the House in D.C., and that's MAGA Republicans. And so they have this oversight committee dealing with the representation of the federal government. Jim Jordan, the nutcase out of Ohio, is leading it. And he is forever getting into it with Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett from the Virgin Islands. Here is some of their back and forth on that committee.
The American people to see,
you don't want the American people to see what happened, the full video
transparency. You don't want that, and you don't want two journalists who have been named personally by the Biden administration, FTC, in a letter.
The Biden administration.
And you're saying they're here to help us. They're here to tell their story. And frankly, I think they're brave individuals for being willing to come after they've been named in a letter from the Biden FTC.
Is this your question time now?
No, I'm responding to your ridiculous statements you made in your opening statement.
Okay, well, let's get on with it.
Oh, now we want to get on with it. So you can say all the things you want. And
I did in my opening statement, as well as you had an
opening
opening statement. You said what you needed to say in your opening statement, and I, as the ranking member, have used my
objection,
time.
all other opening statements will be included in the record. We will introduce today's witness, Matt Taib. I just think this is interesting. First, the FTC is asking for your backgrounds. And now the ranking member of the Committee on the Weaponization of Government is asking for your sources. If
I never asked them for their sources.
Yes,
I did not ask for sources. I asked if they were talking to Elon Musk. And they said that they were not talking. Well, you are not going to say I've asked for sources.
I will yield back to the gentlelady. I thank her for yielding.
With respect, you asked me who gave me who gave me
I asked you who gave it to you, and once you said they were your sources, I then asked you if you had spoken with Elon Musk. I did not ask you who those sources were.
The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized, and she will receive an additional 20 seconds.
Caught up with Congresswoman Plaskett talking about what Republicans are trying to do on the Hill. Here's our conversation.
All right, Congressman Plaskett, Lord have mercy. Jim Jordan, he does not like you having to sit next to him on this committee.
He looks a little uncomfortable, I would say. But it is what it is.
I mean, so here's the thing that is very interesting here. This whole weaponization committee is supposed to be targeting that, but then you have Republicans now wanting to go after the Manhattan DA. I've never seen a situation where people who supposedly are law and order now have a problem with law and order because he's actually using his powers, which he was elected to do, and they're angry about that.
They're always angry about law and order when law and order is not doing what they want. When law and order is about the law and following the law wherever it takes them, the facts wherever it takes them. And sometimes it takes them to the GOP. It takes them to Jim Jordan, it takes them to Trump, and they're uncomfortable with that. They don't want that. And then we get their victimization and their grievances about how the federal system, the legal system has been weaponized against them. It's not been weaponized against them. It's doing its job. And what's unfortunate about this committee is they're trying to also, Roland, desensitize Americans to the rule of law.
Well, I look at the whole issue when I listen to them talk about defund the police.
Mm-hmm.
The Republicans for 2 decades since Waco have done all they could to defund the ATF. Now you have Matt Gaetz talking about defund the ATF, the FBI, all of the different people because they're angry at them. So they're critical. What they're trying to say Democrats are trying to do, they literally have done it because they don't, when they're angry about a arm of law enforcement, then they counter with, oh, we now need to get rid of them and take their funding.
Sure.
Last I checked, it's the same thing.
They want law enforcement when law enforcement is going after other people, not them. That's what it boils down to.
When it comes to again these different investigations, it also, I guess, to me is sort of laughable to have a chairman demand that people comply with subpoenas when didn't he blow off the January 6th committee subpoenas?
Yes, he is out of compliance with the subpoena issued by the January 6th committee for him to give testimony as to what he knew or didn't know to one of the greatest travesties of American history, an attempted insurrection and overthrow of our government on January 6th.
I have spent a lot of time really trying to walk my viewers and listeners through what is going on here. And what I keep saying to people, that if they do not use the power of their vote,
yes,
we are going to regret individuals who are going to be in power because the agenda that they have, because they looked at where Trump screwed up, and they are right now planning and plotting a significant change to how this country is run if they take control of the White House in 2024.
You are absolutely right, Roland. I mean, you look at this committee, much of the work that is happening on the select committee on the weaponization of the federal government is really test running so many of their conspiracy theories and the messaging that they're going to use for the 2024 election. Let's look at them saying that the federal government is going after parents when it relates to school boards. And this is something, this whole parental rights issue is something that they feel was successful during the governor's race in Virginia. And so they're trying to nationalize this discussion about culture wars, about a civil dispute in the classroom with our children. The Weaponization Committee is doing it this week on the floor of the House. They had a bill that they put forward that is really about rewriting history, about desensitizing our children to what American history really is, trying to make parents fearful about what is happening in the classroom, banning books, and then they want to take this throughout the country. They attached, Roland, this bill that they're calling Parental Rights Bill, which is a bill to really bring culture wars into our classroom, is stating that if school districts do not follow this, they will take away school lunches in those areas. Federal subsidized school lunches, which will affect 9 million children throughout the United States.
And we're talking about children who need, that's a nutritional issue.
Right.
Those are poor kids, and a lot of them are poor white kids.
Yes, they are.
From conservative districts.
From Kentucky, from Mississippi, from the places that are completely red. But we know that people vote against their own interests all the time.
Last question for you, and that is this here. Folks are watching and listening, and again, I can't stress enough to them what the strategy is here. What do you want African Americans and others to be doing? Because folks say, man, that's just folks playing games on Capitol Hill, but these are folks with power, with real power, who will use that power for their own purposes.
Who will use that power for their purposes and against African American Black folks' interests. Let's look at what DeSantis has done in Florida, right? DeSantis has now made the study of African American history as if that is something adverse, removing it from the College Board's AP. Your history, Black people's history, is something that we should be avoided. That should have every Black parent up in arms. And this is something that they're now trying to nationalize. Roland, I hate to say this, but our brothers and sisters in Florida, we know statistically that if 65% of the registered voters, of the registered African-American voters in Florida had voted, we wouldn't have DeSantis as governor right now. So people have got to realize that all of these issues are our issues. And their engagement is the fight for all of us. And that engagement includes voting. It includes you voting, getting your children, if they're over 18, voting, get your family out there to vote, and be engaged and push back against this rhetoric. Because if it's repeated enough, it takes root. And that's a real problem as well.
Well, look, I absolutely 100%. And look, stay the course. I know you are, as they say, the old saying, you're a pebble in their shoe, and it's driving them crazy.
Pebble, I'm trying to be a rock. I'm trying to be a boulder, Roland, just like you.
Well, look, I always say, if somebody bring a knife to a gunfight, I'd rather bring a bazooka and get it over real quick. Congresswoman, it's always great to see you. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you. Thanks for your work. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Take care.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk about the Obama Presidential Center. Are African Americans and local residents benefiting from the construction. We'll talk about that next, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Chemistry, Chicago, here in Hyde Park on the South Side, as we're partnering with the WVON for a book signing for my book, White Fear. We'll be back in a moment.
On the next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, re-entry anxiety. A lot of us are having trouble transitioning in this post-pandemic society and don't even realize it. We are literally stuck between two worlds, in purgatory. How to get out of purgatory and regain your footing and balance.
What emotions they're feeling and being able to label them, because as soon as you label an emotion, it's easier to self-regulate. It's easier to manage that emotion.
On the next, A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Hi, I'm Eric Nolan.
I'm Shantae Moore.
Hi, my name is Latoya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered here at Chemistry, Chicago. How y'all doing? Y'all good? All right, y'all good? See, more alcohol has been flowing, so now things have changed. Of course, here in Chicago, this is where the Obama Presidential Center is going to be open. They have been working on that for the last several years. And even from the beginning, local residents were talking about a fair share deal in terms of it being built, jobs, and things along those lines. And the reality is, it has not always been a perfect situation. People assume that everyone has been excited about this happening. That is not the case. Folks want to make sure that who benefits from this. Will it be the residents in the area, in the city as well? Joining me right now is Janella Miller. She's the organizer, Not Me, We, and the Obama CBA Coalition, along with Brandon Patterson. Glad to have both of you. So first of all, the folks who don't know, explain exactly what the Obama CBA Coalition is.
Sure. Thanks for having us. So the Obama CBA Coalition has been organizing since 2015 around the issue of displacement and housing affordability near the Obama Center. So originally, earlier on, our goal was a actual community benefits agreement with the foundation. But after several years of work, when it became apparent that that was not going to happen, we sort of pivoted, shifted our focus to the city, and we've been trying to push the city to pass a housing legislation to address the issue of housing affordability.
Now, first, you say community benefits agreement. So there was, so one was never signed between. What's going on? We can't hear him. Okay, let's see if we try your microphone. Let's try this one here. Talking to that one. Let's see if they can hear.
Y'all didn't hear nothing I said?
How's that? All right, they can hear you. All right, now go ahead. So just restate what you said.
Okay, cool. So the Obama CBA Coalition has been organizing since 2015 around the issue of displacement and housing affordability near the Obama Center. So initially, our goal was an actual community benefits agreement with the foundation, Obama Foundation. But after several years, when it became apparent that that was not going to happen, we shifted our focus and pivoted our focus to the city and pushing the city to pass housing legislation to address housing affordability and the risk of displacement in black, predominantly working class neighborhoods near the center.
So you say folks have been displaced. How many people, how many homeowners? I mean, what are we talking about? What are the numbers?
Yeah, well, look, it's you know, I can tell you what the conditions are in South Shore, right? It's hard to.
No. Here's what I mean. We're talking.
Right.
If we're talking about replacing, we're talking about providing opportunities. Again, are we talking about 50, 100, 200, 300, 500? Are we talking about homeless people? As I'm trying to get an understanding of how significant the displacement is.
Right. So I can tell you about the conditions in South Shore, for example, and the risk of displacement in South Shore, right? So, for example, South Shore is 77% renters. The median income in South Shore is less than $36,000. 53% of residents in South Shore, that includes both homeowners and renters, are already housing cost burdened, right? Meaning they're spending more than they can actually afford month to month on their housing costs. In addition to that, South Shore for the past decade has been the #1 neighborhood of all the neighborhoods in Chicago in terms of the rate of eviction filings. In addition to that, the 5th Ward, which includes South Shore and Woodlawn, it happens to include Hyde Park, which we're sitting in, as well as the site of the center, is the #1 ward of 50 wards in the city in terms of rate of eviction filings. And so what we have now is a situation where you've got long-standing issues with housing affordability in the area that are now being exacerbated by real estate speculation that is happening
I got it.
near the center.
Right, but what I'm still want to have an understanding is numbers. What are we talking about? How many people, how many homes? Because if you're going to go to the city, look, I've covered housing my entire career. If you've got 500 homes impacted and you're talking about displaced housing, I'm going to the city. My whole deal is we need 500 homes for these folks to be in affordable housing. So what's that number? But that way, now, folks, I have a number to associate with what I'm asking for.
Right. So, again, it's hard to measure how many people have already actually been displaced. What I can name, right, is how many people are at risk of displacement.
And how many people?
Because of, well, like I said, 77% of the folks.
No. That's a percentage. I need a number. So what I'm saying is, again, if I'm going to the city,
I don't remember the population of South Shore or Woodlawn or the other neighborhoods in the area off the top of my head right now.
Gotcha. So when you're going to the city and you're at, so what do you want?
We can right. But in conversations with the city, we can pull those numbers.
Right. Yes. But that's important because now the people out there know what the ask is.
Right.
So the ask is not a percentage. The ask is the number. And so if 1,000 homeowners, renters, are being displaced, then to the city, hey, you need to be replacing 1,000 of these homes and not forcing these people to flee other particular areas. And so, because I'm always with our audience, be very specific about what the ask is.
Sure.
Okay. And so as this has been going on, so you say you're now going to the city. Have those conversations taken place? What have they been like? What are they saying?
Yeah. So we have had conversations. So I guess to start, we proposed a robust, comprehensive package of a range of policy proposals that would support homeowners, condo owners, and renters alike, as well as property owners, right?
And what's that? What's the proposal?
Right. So just to give you an example of a few. Cash rental assistance for folks who are struggling to pay their rent. Mortgage assistance, down payment assistance for first-time home buyers, so folks can afford to buy a home and
cash rental assistance, right? Mortgage assistance.
Right.
Got it.
So we are pushing for a mandate that would ensure that 30% of in all new developments in the neighborhood, residential developments, 30% of the units will be set aside for affordable housing.
And how are you defining affordable housing?
I think the number is, so 75% of units would be, I think, 30 to 60% of AMI for the area, and then the other 20.
Okay, hold on. Again, ain't nobody at home know what AMI is.
Okay.
How much are we talking about?
How much money are we talking about?
Yeah, because again,
so the entire package would cost around $63 million in the first year, and then there are buckets that we're proposing that will be recurring annually, and so it would be a smaller number than 63 that would be recurring out annually. But in the first year, it would be $63 million, which is pennies in compared to, for example, the $1.3 billion that the city is invested in, say, Lincoln Yards, right? Another mega development project on the north side, right? And so what we're calling on the city to do is invest in ensuring that folks have the stability, right, to be able to stay here and benefit.
Right.
That black folks and working folks over here can afford to stick around. And the way they invest
and who is your lead sponsor on the council moving that forward? Who is that?
Our lead sponsor?
Yeah, in terms of have you got buy-in from actual aldermen? And so who is saying, hey, I'm with you on this one, and I'm going to help push this through?
Right. So that's the thing, right? In 2020, we were successful in getting the city council to pass a housing bill which covers Woodlawn, which is another predominantly black working-class neighborhood near the center and near South Shore. Our neighborhood, well, the neighborhood that I currently live in, grew up in, and that Chinella has had to move from recently, was cut out of that bill by our outgoing mayor, Lori Lightfoot, and our outgoing alderperson, Leslie Hairston. And so we are now calling on the next mayor and the next alderperson to introduce and pass this bill. There are currently, you asked, what are we hearing from aldermen? There are currently 2 candidates in a runoff, right, for the city council seat that would represent the 5th Ward, which includes South Shore and Woodlawn and other neighborhoods. One is on record saying that they support our demands without qualification. The other is on record saying that they support the vast majority of what's in the package. Brandon Johnson, who was here earlier, has said that he would do this. We haven't spoken to Paul Vallas, but and then I would add.
Have y'all made contact with the Vallas campaign?
We haven't. Right. We haven't. But then I would.
Why not? I mean, he's running for mayor.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's something we'll do. I think we don't expect to get much,
No. Okay. This is just, here's the deal. It's just like when I came here.
Right.
We call the campaign. It's up to them to decide if they want to come back.
Right.
There are 2 people running. He might win. So the reality is, I think if you're trying to get it, you need to reach out to him to get him on record as to where he stands on this before folks actually vote. So, but if you don't contact him, then the folks don't know where he stands. That's on you.
Well, certainly it is something that we will do. I want to add, though, you asked about, I just offered, alder support, city council support, what was going on with the mayor. I want to add that on election day several weeks ago, the coalition had 2 referendums on the ballot locally, right, in South Shore and Woodlawn. There was a referendum on the ballot in 9 precincts in South Shore, 2 in Woodlawn, calling for asking residents would they support proposals like what's included in the demands that we've developed, which, by the way, we developed over a month-long research process, working with policymakers, lawyers.
No, I know. I've been following it. I know.
Right, and community members. Right, and the referendum in South Shore passed with 88% of the vote across all the 9 precincts, and the referendum in Woodlawn passed with similar levels of support. And so, the data is clear, right, in terms of the vulnerability and the need to address this issue. And also now community members, right, are on record to say they want their next alderperson and their next mayor to get this done. And so that's what we're expecting, the folks to do. And we're going to continue to push and to organize to make sure that it happens.
Well, I still be interested to know if, again, where does Paul Vallas stand on it? And, again, it needs to be asked. And so my whole deal is between now and April 4th, y'all need to be asking him and force him to be on record.
Sure.
Because is he on record? Has this been discussed anywhere?
I'm not sure. I don't recall if Hal Ross is on record speaking about this particular issue specifically.
Okay. All right. Well, y'all let me know if y'all contact him, then what he says.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Huh? Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Good luck. We'll be following and see what happens. Thanks a bunch. Hold tight 1 second, folks. Got to go to the break. Talk to my panel. We come back. We're here at Chemistry Chicago. We'll also continue to talk about, man, what y'all doing over? Y'all about to blow something up over there? Get us, man, what you doing? Oh, so y'all didn't heat, man, swing the camera around. Swing the camera around. You supposed to heat it up in the kitchen, not at the table. I know that. Look at her. She trying to tell. Lord, my brother's an executive chef. She trying to tell me how they cooking the food. I know. I'm just messing with you. All right, folks. We'll be back here in Chicago at Chemistry Chicago. A big shout out to the folks at WVOE, and I'll be chatting with them in just a second about my book, White Fear. Don't forget, download our app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV, and of course, you can watch us now on our 24-hour streaming channel on Amazon News. Click Amazon Fire, go to Amazon News. You can also tell Alexa, play the Black Star Network, and of course, the audio from our show we start playing as well. Thanks a bunch. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Vivian Green.
Hi, this is Essence Atkins.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
Where's what's the brother who's the owner? Hey folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. I'm gonna bring up my panel right here, Michael. The point I was making there, when we talk about impact, we talk about housing. We heard it with the mayor there as well. This is a fundamental issue right now, especially when you look at private equity owning so many homes as well. And the reality is this here: if you look at the numbers. As a nation, we built anywhere from 10 to 20 million homes per decade. Between 2010 and 2020, that number actually was below 5. So one of the reasons why there's a housing shortage in America right now, because after the home foreclosure crisis, you didn't have a lot of home building. We now should be building between 2020, 2030. We should literally be building anywhere from 20 to 30 million homes to catch up with what was not built in the previous decade.
Right, but not only that, Roland, during the COVID-19, you didn't have housing stock. You didn't have housing starts happen. So after we come out of COVID, you had that deficit of housing stocks. And then at the same time, as you mentioned, private equity is buying up especially single bedroom homes. Okay, so you have a crunch when it comes to housing. Very quickly, something that you just hit on with Brandon Johnson, with Brandon Patterson, I should say, with Brandon Patterson, is that the same initiative or the same standard he was going to hold Brandon Johnson to, they didn't reach out to Paul Vallas, okay, the opponent. And
right.
Sometimes this is the mistake that we make when you have, it could be a local race or it can be a partisan race where you have Democrats and Republicans. We'll hold the Democratic candidate to a standard that we don't hold the Republican candidate to and demand the same thing from them. So we have to push the agenda of all the candidates in the race, not just the Democratic candidate.
Absolutely. Avis, go ahead.
Absolutely true. I think really what this is very important for us to understand is that this is really sort of carries on the conversation that we had before. It's just a different way to wield your power, right? We wield our power not only by showing up, right, and voting and demanding action after Election Day. We wield our power by actually going to all of those who are in contention for power, and if for no other reason, as you mentioned, Roland, putting them on the record. Make them say no. Make them say no. And then they can be blasted for saying no. But they can't be blasted for saying no if they're never asked the question. So it's really just part of how we are able to make sure that our issues are on everybody's agenda, not just on half of the equation that we are hoping to win. The bottom line is that everybody needs to be concerned with earning our vote, and therefore they need to have the opportunity to know what we want, and we need to know whether or not they are willing to do what we want them to do if and when they get into power.
Matt?
I don't have much to add beyond, I would say my thought is a little bit of a departure from some of what we talked about, to the extent that I think this brings up an issue that we as Americans really need to trot out what our core values are and what we just don't allow to exist in our society. For the candidate to say that 65,000 families in Chicago are unhoused, and then you have a huge private equity market where there's all this shortage in housing, that should be a problem for us as people. And to the points made before, that should be something that's brought to administrations to make sure that people have places to live and that we have basic things that people need in their lives to have a decent quality of life, that they be met by the government and its initiatives. Because frankly, government exists purely to administer services and to try to keep some semblance of, harmony between us. But beyond that, we shouldn't allow situations like this where you have crazy housing shortage and then you have all these people who don't have housing. So I'm hoping that this is something that the candidates, both Vallas and Mr. Johnson, consider when they're thinking about how to shape the policy, because at the end of the day, the question is, how do you treat the Chicagoan at the bottom of the stack as opposed to those at the top? That's what gives us our, our barometer for how our society is functioning.
All right, then. Well, first of all, a shortened version of our show with our panel, Avis, Michael, and Matt. We certainly appreciate y'all joining us. Thank you so very much. Look forward to seeing y'all again. Thanks a bunch. And I see Michael with that whole new look. What you got, a new couch or something? You want to showcase it?
No, it's not new. It's just another.
Does everybody know you got a new couch?
That's all. Just another area.
Yeah, okay.
I'll be back at the decks next week.
I got you. Gotcha. Okay. All right, then. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. All right, folks. Joining us right now is Eric Rico Nancy. He's the owner here at the restaurant we're in, Commissioner Chicago. How you doing? First of all, how long has this been open?
We're about to turn a year in August.
Wow, really?
About to turn a year in August.
Well, folks have been. Lots of talk about it. People are talking about it's one of the hottest new restaurants in the city.
That's right. We've easily become one of the top black-owned steakhouses in the entire country, and we're very, very thankful for people like you and our guests.
Gotcha. And so, and what are your working hours?
We open every night from 5 to 11 at night. We offer live jazz.
7 days a week?
7 days a week. Offer live jazz, and then after jazz, we have a DJ comes in and turns it up a little bit. It's a wonderful experience, a perfect place to date, and a perfect place for you to actually fall in love. So that's why it's really caught on with the people, and they really love it. So
Gotcha. And so, out of all the menu items, what's your favorite one?
The Wagyu tomahawk steak. You can't get it nowhere else. It's a gold wrapped tomahawk steak. It comes, of course, all of our steaks get cut tableside. Wonderful black chefs come out here and cut it for you. We make sure that we have a top-notch experience for you. But that one's like just overly butter. It's overly just falls right off the bone, and it's just an amazing experience. Amazing experience.
Okay. All right, then. And so, this your first restaurant?
No, this is actually the third brand that I've created, Lighthouse Whole Food Grill, Mickey's Retro Grill, Soul Shack, and then we created, God put through me, I was able to create Chemistry, Steakhouse and Brunch Place.
Gotcha. All right, then. Well, look, it sounds great. Now, what do y'all call this, the salmon with the chili sauce? What is it called?
It's good. Those are, it's called the salmon sticks.
Salmon sticks?
Honey garlic salmon sticks. That's what.
Honey garlic salmon sticks.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all over here clapping. I guess y'all like those, huh?
Did you like them?
I guess y'all like them.
Beautiful.
Okay, all right then. Well, look, we appreciate it. Glad to be here. Thanks for hosting us.
Thank you for all you've done for not only us and our people, but all of the world. Thank you for putting your presence in this place. We really are honored for you to be here.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, looking forward to trying some of that food. All right,
we
come back. I'm going to chat with the afternoon drive time host on WVON about my book, White Fear. That's right. We've been talking about it, of course. They've been promoting it all week on the radio. We'll be discussing that next. And again, I'll be signing some copies as well. And I see y'all got y'all food over here. So y'all got drinks over here. So that's all they want to do at the table, just drink. They just want to drink. And the busiest place in the room actually is the bar. So when we come back, we'll be chatting with WVON Radio. I want to thank them for being partnering with us on here. Don't forget, download our app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Support our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to travel around the country covering the stores that matter. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And again, White Fear. Get your copy now. Available at all bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Target. You can download your copy on Audible as well. We'll be right back.
A lot of these corporations or people that are running stuff push black people if they're doing a certain thing. What that does is it creates a butterfly effect of any young kid who, wants to leave any situation they're in, and the only people they see are people that are doing this. So I gotta be a gangster, I gotta shoot, I gotta sell, I gotta do this in order to do it. And it just becomes a cycle. But when someone comes around and is making we don't do, they don't want to push it or put money into it. So that's definitely something I'm trying to fix too, is just show there's other avenues. You don't got to be a rapper, you don't got to be a ball player. You can be a country singer, you can be an opera singer, you can be a damn whatever, showing the different avenues. And that is possible, and it's hard for people to realize it's possible until someone does it.
Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
What's up, y'all? I'm Will Packer.
I'm Chrisette Michelle.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, folks, welcome back. Video out of Kansas City, Missouri has been released in the shooting death of Tyria Pryor, of course. And he was a man who was pinned in the car because his car crashed and he was shot. He was killed on March 11th, 2022 by Independence police officers Jamie Welsh and Hunter Soule. Police went after Pryor. Two others... They were after Pryor and two others as they banged on the door of a woman's home, and officers Walsh and Soule arrived at the scene of the complaint. Pryor got in his white sedan, exited the complaint's driveway, and sped away from the area. He crashed his car after a brief pursuit before crashing into a pole. Body cam shows officers approaching the vehicle as the men remain inside, firing shots at him through the windshield. Officers did find an AR-15 style rifle in the vehicle, but not the pistol they thought he was reaching for in the video. The family believes the police used excessive force and violated his civil rights. They're calling for an independent investigation into the incident. Joining us now is Harry Daniels, the Pryor family attorney, the mother of Tyria's children, Ebony Finley, as well. Glad to have both of you here, unfortunately, under these circumstances. Harry, explain this to us. First and foremost, in terms of, so the police say they saw a handgun, but one was not recovered.
Well, how you doing? Let me lean back a little bit. So you
doing great.
Yeah, that's correct, Roland. The police reason for shooting and called out gun was because they believe that Tyria had a pistol in his left hand. Well, when they checked the car, no pistol was recovered at all. It was a rifle that was in the right side by the console that was stuck, and one of the officers had secured that weapon, and all the officers on the scene knew that rifles had been secured. But one officer walks back up and screams like, "Gun, gun," and he gave a detailed account about this gun being in the left hand, Tyria's left hand. But no weapon was ever found whatsoever. No pistol whatsoever was ever found.
So what do we have here? We have a police report saying one thing and something totally different?
Yes. So what you have here is a story made up. A story that's made up where a prosecuting attorney makes a decision not to take charges, where it's crystal clear that a gun, a weapon, a pistol did not exist. Mr. Tyria was incapacitated, disabled, and he was bleeding out. He was pinned by a sternum column. He had shallow breathing, trying to stay alive. Then within a matter of seconds, another officer comes up on the scene and says, "Gun, gun," and two officers start shooting. They have a knowledge that no pistol exists. No gun, no pistol ever existed. He did not have a hand. The prosecuting attorney position is that, well, it was this ill-fated events, that led to the death of Tyria Pryor. When you have a officer making up stories about a weapon being in a person's hand, it sets bad and dangerous precedents. So essentially now the police, all they got to do is say, well, I thought he had his gun in his hand, so that's the reason why I shot him. The credibility of this officer is none whatsoever. It's non-existent. Because when you tell a story about a detailed story about a gun in the left hand, he had a grip, what color it was, the trigger was coming towards me, I can see him bring it up to me. When no gun exists, you have an absolute lie. But once again, we see rolling over and over a black man, unarmed black man being killed by law enforcement, and the prosecuting attorney just saying, there's nothing they can do about it. It was justified force.
Ebony, please share your thoughts.
Ebony this is Attorney Dupree, one of the attorneys for Ms. Finley and the family. Ebony, just speaking about this situation, gets her very stressed out and at a loss of words. She wants the police to be held accountable, and she wants justice in this matter. And before coming on, she told me that the only way, I asked her, what does justice mean? And she told me that the only way that police and law enforcement, not only in Jackson County, Missouri, but in this nation will stop killing unarmed black men is for them to be prosecuted. That's what she wants. She wants them to be held accountable. In this case, the Jackson County prosecutor didn't even send the facts of this case to the grand jury.
So, Harry, you said you want an independent investigation. You want that done by whom?
Yeah, Roland, we have asked the Department of Justice to come in to do an independent investigation. We have sent a letter up to Christian Clark's office. They have received it. Roland, this is the type of case where the Department of Justice must come in. Like Attorney Dupree said, at minimum, the elected prosecutor for Jackson County should at minimum present this case to the grand jury. I'm a firm believer the reason why this case did not go to a grand jury, because I believe a grand jury, based on the statements and objective evidence, I believe they would have came back with a true bill with some degree of homicide in the state of Missouri. And she was more willing to protect her interests. Their reason and rationale doesn't make sense. You know, the position is that, you know, the officer, it was reasonable, objective reasonable, even though that reasonableness is untrue. Well, when he makes a whole entire story up, that goes to the credibility of that officer. The other officers on the scene did not see a gun. In fact, one officer gave statement to Missouri State Highway Patrol that when they screamed gun, he didn't know why, because the rifle was secured. We had the rifle. So what gun are you referring to? And they go back and they look, Roland, instead of giving this man treatment, life-saving treatment, they were more damn interested in trying to find this pistol that did not exist. That alone should trigger the Department of Justice. We believe the Department of Justice will be coming in this matter and will do a thorough investigation to determine why a grand jury was not impaneled. And not just that, why these officers still on the street, not to just investigate the Independence Police Department, but may investigate the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office. This is an outrageous use of force. When you look at this video, this man was trapped and killed, was not posing a threat to anybody. And this is not a case where you just slap someone on the wrist, it was a mistake. You killed a man. These ill-guided events, these ill-fated events. Roland, if you have ill-fated events, you go in and shoot somebody, you should be subject to the criminal justice system just like anybody else. And these police officers be subjected to the criminal justice system. Her precedence makes for police to be judge, jury, and you can see in this case, executioners.
All right. Harry, thank you so very much. Ebony, thank you so very much as well. Please keep us updated on exactly what happens in this case. Thank you so very much.
All right, we keep you updated. Thanks, Roland.
All right, folks, we're back here at Chemistry Chicago. I'm joined by the afternoon drive time host of WVON Radio. I chatted with y'all the other day. Atiba, Darlene, how we doing?
Doing? We are fantastic and happy to be
here in Chicago, your old stomping ground.
Indeed, glad to be back. It's been a while, and I made it clear I was not coming back between November and into February. It's too damn cold. So it's not bad.
Smart
not
man.
bad.
Smart man.
Yeah, way too cold.
It's been warmer this week.
Praise the Lord.
Today it's cold. Today it's
No, this ain't cold. This ain't cold. No, this ain't today. No, today ain't cold. You know what? Look, if it was in the single digits, that's a different conversation. I was walking outside like this here.
Oh, you didn't wear a coat?
I got a coat, but I'm saying it wasn't that cold.
You were doing something.
It wasn't that cold.
You are doing something. You know what? You remind me of the mixer, the shakers back there making martinis.
What's that?
Shaking things up with this book, White Feet.
Me?
You are shaking things up.
No.
Yes, you. It was intentional.
Absolutely. That's worth a round of applause.
Well,
that is worth a round of applause.
That's what we did. So let me explain the image. So the image is from the January 6th. Yeah. And so on that cover, it's a white man. His arms are outstretched. First of all, control room, I lost your IFB, so y'all need to fix that. His white man, arms outstretched. He's essentially saying all of this is ours. Okay. And I had to keep reminding people, when Trump kept complaining about the election, he kept mentioning 4 cities: Atlanta, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Detroit.
Right.
And that's black folks. And that's what the anger was all about. And so you still see it. You still see everything with against critical race theory. You see attacking AP African American studies. You see banning books. all of this is all driven by white fear. All of it.
I had a question for you. On air the other day, you traced the origins of the book back to about 10 years or so, and a little bit around that era. My question to you is, do you think that the Tea Party was kind of the first seeds being planted, stoking and fomenting this?
No,
piece?
it was before. It was before the Tea Party.
Okay.
See, so what I lay out, I take this thing back all the way back to literally the end of the Civil War. So at every juncture in American history, black success has always been followed by white backlash.
Right.
Always. At every single juncture. And so when you had the election of Obama, what started was 2009. There was a study that was done. The question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? Every group except white America, majority said yes. In September 2016, a study was asked, and the question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America economically for the next 10 years? Black people, lowest wealth, highest optimism. Latinos, second lowest wealth, second highest optimism. White Americans, highest wealth, lowest optimism. And so what you're seeing is the natural outgrowth of folks, and I'm not saying all white folks, but who are seeing what's going on, and they're seeing the demographic changes, and it's like, oh, no, we ain't trying, no, we need to maintain power. And it's because, so now, remember, the largest caucus now on the Democratic side in Congress is the Congressional Black Caucus. The largest caucus. Yeah, so what you're dealing with is you're dealing with people who now are seeing the reality that as whites' numbers are decreasing, Black and Latino numbers are increasing, you got to now share power, share resources, and that folks, they don't want to do that.
Look, let's talk about that reality right there. You have, and I've known you for many, many years, when you were here in Chicago. Let's talk about you being unapologetically. You are right there at the intersection, as Tiffany Cross, from a former anchor there at MSNBC, talked about how you are that journalist, you are that truth teller, and you are always representing the culture. Even if that means the networks don't want you.
Oh, yeah.
The networks are afraid of you. Like you said, they don't want to hear this. They don't always want to hear this, so you had to create your own platform.
Well, I can tell you, I have gotten calls from African Americans who are hosts on shows on networks, and I have been told my white producers will not let me bring you on the show because they don't like your book title. Now, here's the thing. I talk about those very white producers in the book.
Absolutely.
Because the reason white media doesn't want to deal with this topic, because they have to deal with their own stuff on the inside. And so that's part of the deal. So when people say, why isn't the media covering this? Well, the media is made up of people who
absolutely.
And they're largely white executives, largely white men, and then if they're not white men, they're largely white women. And we're not talking about just ABC, NBC, CBS, NBC. And even though you might have Ken Godwin, who's the president of Black ABC News, the first Black network news president, it's still a whole bunch of people who are underneath her. Right. Rashida Jones might be the president of MSNBC, but the people who are above her and who are below her as well.
Absolutely.
And so we have to understand that those who control the microphone get to dictate what's said on the microphone. There's not a single black host on ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, throw all of them in. Not a single one that controls their show. They have input, right, but they don't control their show. The people who control it are the producers, are the executives, and so that's why I've always understood the power of black-owned media.
They don't want your smoke rolling, because you don't come in there with a navy blue or black suit and a blue or red tie. You come in with your dashiki representing the alphas.
Or before, I would be wearing pinstripes and colors, and they like, what you? I was like, y'all, I can't dress like them.
Yeah.
I said, I can't do that. I can't do that. Hold tight 1 second. I know we got to pay some bills. We're taking a 2-minute break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, chatting with Darlene and Tiva for WVON Radio. Give them a round of applause. We're partnering with them for this book signing. We'll be right back talking about white fear.
When you talk about blackness,
and what happens in black culture. We're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
A lot of these corporations or people that are running stuff push black people if they're doing a certain thing. What that does is it creates a butterfly effect of any young kid who, you know, wants to leave any situation they're in, and the only people they see are people that are doing this. So I gotta be a gangster, I gotta shoot, I gotta sell, I gotta do this in order to do it. And it just becomes a cycle. But when someone comes around and is making other, we don't, you know, they don't want to push it or put money into it. So that's definitely something I'm trying to fix too, is just show there's other avenues. You don't gotta be a rapper, you don't gotta be a ball player, you can be a country singer, you can be an opera singer, you can be a damn whatever, you know? Showing the different avenues, and that is possible, and it's hard for people to realize it's possible until someone does it.
Hi, I'm Gavin Houston.
Hi, I'm Carl Payne.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy, Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
All right, y'all, welcome back. Roland Martin Unfiltered here on the Black Star Network. We're chatting about my book, White Fear, with Darlene and Atiba, both from WV on Radio. All right, y'all got to ask the questions.
Excellent. I love this part. So what I wanted to ask you was, what we're seeing in this country is a lot of avoidance. When you look at the rhetoric around CRT, we're going to avoid talking about racism as opposed to dealing with the tough conversations. We're going to avoid dealing with a book that keeps us from having this tough conversation. How harmful is that avoidance as we cannot, again, move forward in with an honest conversation about race?
So here's why all these white people are losing their minds, really. Because with the death of George Floyd, that was the first time in American history a majority of Americans supported a black movement. It was 53 or 56% of Americans were in support of the movement in the wake of the death of George Floyd. So what's freaking these white folks out, these white kids, remember, millions were protesting. They saw all these white kids out there, and they were inside of companies. Adidas is a perfect example. Adidas made an announcement, something along the lines of they were going to do like $10 million commitment to social justice. The white folks in Adidas lost their mind. They had to up it to $100 million the next day. So these white politicians have been seeing what's going on here. And I remember in 2012, I was moderating a panel at Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, ALC. It was a voting rights panel. So Kristen Clark was on it. She led the Lawyers Committee. Sherilyn Ifill. It was several different civil rights groups. And I said, we've got to expand this voter suppression conversation beyond black and brown to include young white voters. Because Republicans saw how young white voters were voting, and that's why they started moving voting locations off of college campuses. And so there's a bill in Texas to have no voting locations on university campuses. Even at my alma mater, Texas A&M, which is overwhelmingly conservative and white. They are fearful that these white kids have been reading black history, have been exposed to it, and now that's why they hate the 1619 Project. And so that's what you're seeing. They're seeing the visceral reaction if you start educating the masses about the reality of race and injustice. They're like, man, we gonna be screwed.
That's what this battle is. And so that's why I keep telling the black folks, when we check out of elections, we're actually empowering those who are against us to maintain power.
Well, and that's what they want us to do. So let me ask you this.
Which is why Trump said, Donald Trump stood up and said, black people, thank you for not voting. If a crazed white Republican thanks you for not voting, it's probably not a good idea not to vote.
Let me ask you this. So we're on the south side of Chicago in Hyde Park, 51st and Harper at Chemistry. Room full of educated, smart, all supporting black folks, right? Room in the room, right? Okay. White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Who'd you write this book for? Because we're going to buy the book tonight.
No.
But do you want white folks to read it too?
Oh, no. I want them to read it, but also I want us to read it. Because the reality is a lot of us are walking around clueless in black skin.
That part.
Say that again before you...
A lot of us who are black, we think we know when actually we don't know. I remember when I was in a black history class at Texas A&M, and Dr. Alvin Broussard, he was teaching, and he was bringing stuff up, and I'm looking at the other black students like, y'all don't know what the hell he talking about. And they had no idea. And so even when we talk about black history, it's a bunch of black people ain't got no clue whatsoever. And so then I hear black people say, well, man, we got to have this in the schools. First of all, I'm just confused. You want the same school system that ain't teaching us about everything else, but then you want them teaching about us? That's the dumbest thing in the world. And so we have to get back. And it's so. And this is not a diss on rap. But I need us to understand, again, what is happening with the minds of our kids. If you have a child who can recite every lyric of a song,
say that, Roland.
There's no way in the world they can't recite black history facts.
Say that.
But you have to, but the question is, are you, look, when I lived here, my wife and I, my twin nieces came, well, they were a year and a half old, later joined by their two sisters living with us. And then my other two nieces, so at one point it was 6. Whenever my year and a half old nieces were in the car and we were driving longer than 10 minutes, we were not listening to music. I had educational DVDs that were actually in the car. And they were immersed in it. I have a whole collection. One of my nieces came to me, and it was something come up in one of her classes, and I said, I think they were dealing with post-slavery Reconstruction. I was like, all right, come on. So I got more than 1,000 books in my library, and so she's talking. I was like, yep, this book. She was like, wait a minute, I just asked one question. How all of a sudden I got 5 books? I'm like, well, first of all, I'm like, your one question had other parts to it. So I had a book breaking down the 14th Amendment, breaking down the first black United States Senator, all this sort of stuff. Now, here's the deal. If I did not have the books present, I could not provide the immediate information.
Right.
So that's part of the deal. So what I say in the book, we can't wait for 2043 when the numbers shift. We must be preparing ourselves to be in position to take advantage of the power shift and not wait for that very moment, because the fear that I have is that we will be like South Africa, where black South Africans took political power, but because they were fighting for that over those years, when I interviewed Winnie Mandela, she talked about this here, the literacy rate was so high because the kids were fighting apartheid when they should have been in school.
You're right.
And so we have to return to that, and it's an education piece, which is why on my show, I don't care who got married. I don't care who's sleeping with who. I don't care who got divorced. I don't care who got a baby. If you want to watch that stuff, go watch somebody else's show. I just don't have because it's enough of that already.
Too high.
Yeah.
It's enough. You can go find it somewhere else, but I'm not going to spend my 2 hours dealing with that. It's just not going to happen.
You mentioned earlier about black folk checking out the election process. You just sat down with mayoral candidate Brandon Johnson. Here in Chicago, we have roughly a 33% voter participation rate in the mayoral election, and it gets even more paltry if there's.
Hold on, you
runoff
said 33%, and that's total.
Total.
That's total. What's the black participation number?
I would say it's probably 4 to 5% percentage points lower than that, at least.
Okay, so now when you start breaking down numbers, whether you're talking Chicago mayoral election, whether you're talking Atlanta, whether you're talking Houston, whether you're talking even statewide elections, if black people voted at 50%, let's just say of the eligible black voters, those who are eligible and registered, if we actually vote at 50 to 60% of our numbers, we sweep elections.
Yes, we do.
Not one. We sweep all of them. All of them. Because, again, numbers don't lie. When Mike Espy ran for U.S. Senator against Cindy Hyde-Smith in Mississippi, he lost by 65,000 votes. 65,000 votes. There were more than 100,000 eligible but registered black people in Mississippi, which has the largest black population in America, that did not vote. If those black folks had just voted, they would have a black United States senator. They didn't vote. And so someone says why? It is because, one, a lot of people have gotten the belief that, look, this means nothing. It's not going to change anything, which means that we have to enlighten people first, educate people before we can get them registered, and then before they vote. So we can't say go vote if I don't explain why
without the foundation
and how this impacts you, and then build from there. So that's why when anybody comes up to me and they say, man, why should I vote? The first thing I say is, what do you care about? They go, what do you mean? I go, what do you care about? And then I walk them through how what they care about has a direct correlation who's in public office. And then I go, so how can you care about that one thing but then not vote? But then you say you care about that thing. How do you think that's going to get changed? Then they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, and that's why you should vote. So we got to walk people through and connect the dots.
Absolutely. So after we get people to vote.
Absolutely.
After we get people to vote, then, what's the next step? Because what happens is I think a lot of people expect something to happen in one election.
Yep.
When you look at what happened with Roe v. Wade, that was a long game.
Oh, that was very long.
Long game. They didn't get tired. They did not get weary. They kept voting. And so can you speak to just the ability for us to think about this in the long term and understand that we're voting for things that you might not even see in your lifetime, but it's still worth your vote today?
So I'm going to answer that question. Hold on one second. We're about to end our live stream on the show. Oh, yeah, I'm paying attention. I got it. Folks, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on Monday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Don't forget, download our app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And, of course, when y'all come to Chicago, please support black-owned restaurants, black-owned businesses. You can't talk by black if you don't actually do it. So let me thank Chemistry. Let me thank WVN Radio. I'll see you guys Monday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Holla!
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.